everyone. Hello, hello. Good afternoon. I hope everyone is having a wonderful week. Welcome to Nomads Media, your travel, business, and lifestyle magazine and podcast. And of course, Nomads is produced by VideoGaga, our marketing and media company, here in Madrid, in Canada, and in the Philippines. Welcome to this special episode of How to Move to Spain. We're going to talk about visas and immigration with two experts all the way from Barcelona. Today, let's dive into the key immigration routes for non-EU citizens who dream of living in Spain, whether you're a professional, an entrepreneur, a digital nomad, a student, or someone with family ties in the country, of course, in Spain. Our expert panel will break down the visa options and pathways to permanent residency or citizenship in Spain. We'll also cover essential tips on the application process, common pitfalls to avoid, and updates on recent policy changes. So if you have any questions, please write them down in the comments below. And yes, I know there are a lot of questions, a lot of doubts from people around the world, from our community members, and also fellow entrepreneurs and employees here in Spain, in the UK, in countries like the US, Canada, and the Philippines. So stay tuned. We have some useful tips and advice from two of our experts. So let's get started. We have, of course, one of our guests and panel speakers today is Cristian Balcells, Director and CEO of Balcells Group, a seasoned immigration lawyer. Cristian is dedicated or has dedicated his career to helping individuals and families navigate the legal process of relocating to Spain. Through his firm, he advises clients from around the world on resident permits, as well as on tax matters, property purchases, and business setup. Hello, Cristian. How are you? Good afternoon. All right, so you're on mute. You need to turn on your mic.
Well, thank you very much for being invited to today to talk about immigration. It's one of my passions in life, so very happy to discuss with my colleague, with Darío, about all this and to be useful, which is most important.
Thank you very much, Cristian. And yes, joining us on the panel is Darío Cerisole, founding partner and client acquisition director at Illay Legal in Barcelona, with over a decade of experience in international mobility and immigration law. Darío leads a multilingual, multidisciplinary team that helps individuals and businesses from around the world successfully navigating Spain's legal landscape. Darío, I hope you're having a good afternoon, and I hope I pronounce your last name right.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Carlos, for the introduction. A pleasure to be here today with Cristian too. Yes, you did a very good approximation. It's Cerisole, I say, okay, but no worries at all. Yeah, as we have been saying, it's a pleasure to be here and explain and try to give an overview and I to provide clarity about the system. I will say that Spain is a very friendly country to migrate to, but it's very important to have a very clear strategy and a view of how to do things so we don't commit any mistakes. So everything we can provide for your public will be lovely, so we can have a clear picture of how things works.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Now, let's start with, of course, your law firms, your immigration firms. Cristian, can you tell us a bit about Balcells Group and how you're helping interested applicants from around the world?
Yes, very good. Well, Balcells Group is a family law firm. My father is a lawyer, and for over 40 years, we've been advising clients from all around the world. And me, I'm now in the position of the CEO, and I manage the lawyers, the team, on helping clients around the world. And we have two areas of expertise. One would be immigration. We we do all type of immigration, from students to investors to startups to highly skilled digital nomads. So we do everything on regards to immigration. It's one of the founder ideas of Balcells Group to cover everything on immigration. And we also have a tax department where we help on the taxes to navigating the taxes, especially for those international clients that they need to have a type of professional who knows how it works in Spain, and also to have an international perspective. So this, me as the director, I manage the team, and we also handle corporate and legal in minor, but we also help on this. So the idea of Balcells is to do everything for the client on his journey in Spain.
Wonderful, thank you. How about you, Dario? Tell us more about Illay Legal.
Of course. So basically, we came to the conclusion in the end that we started, of course, too, as immigration specialists, but it comes a moment where the client grows, right, and they have certain needs, like they need to settle businesses in Spain, they need to manage employment globally, or maybe they need to open a subsidiary of a business here in the country. Then, of course, this brings into tax questions, social security matters, international transfers, employment managed in a global scale, also certain litigations aspects, contractual aspects. So we started to provide more services and to include basically a one-stop point for the international client that basically wants to settle in Spain. This is something that is going to happen sometimes in an individual manner, in other times in a more corporate manner. So we provide complete solutions specifically for international clients that wants to set up in Spain. That's our objective.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now, let's go ahead with the main immigration pathways. Cristian, what are those available, or the pathways available for non-EU citizens? Again, of course, we are talking about people or citizens outside the European Union who would like to move to Spain long term.
Yes, well, here there would be mainly four type of international people who wants to come to live to Spain. The first one would be the students, those who wants to study in Spain. This would be a very clear way to come to Spain. The second one would be people who wants to retire, or they just want to have a sabbatical year to enjoy the country without any need to work. This would be another way to come to Spain. The third one would be professionals, those who comes here because they have work opportunities, they find a job, or so this would be another way. And the fourth one would be the startups, people who wants to develop a business in our country. So this would be the fourth generally ways to come to Spain if they don't have Spanish family members or they don't have EU citizens residing in the country. Yeah, this would be in general the four ways I see.
That's right. Yeah. And that's when the questions start, right?
Yes,
The questions begin.
How that works, right?
Yes. And I mean, there are so many common questions that the objective, of course, of this video is to answer questions about those pathways that Cristian actually mentioned. Now, Dario, what are the most accessible among these routes or pathways, or popular immigration pathways or visas for Spain?
Of course, I will say for an ease of use, we have to differentiate of application we can process from Spain, because a lot of clients, maybe if they're US nationals or any other nationality that has access to enter the country as a tourist for 90 days, every 180, they could just enter Spain and apply from here. And from this perspective, I will say that the most populars are going to be digital nomads. We are receiving lots of applications from digital nomads as are setting now in Spain. Of course, there are also entrepreneurs that can apply from here. This one has to be taken into consideration because not everybody can get there, but there are other chances and opportunities. And of course, students of superior degrees that wants to start their career over here and wants to start studying here in the country can also apply from here from Spain. So they tend to be quite popular and useful. Then I will say, and following in on what Cristian mentioned before, every time we have a company in Spain or a subsidiary that wants to hire or transfer employees here, it's always a very good manner. For example, maybe there is a position. Somebody is working in a company right now in the US, and there is an opening in a company, in the same company, but in a branch that is based in Madrid or in Barcelona. What they could do is ask for a transfer. So we have a specific permit for that, is intercompany transfer. And the person could be, in a very successful and fast manner, get transferred into Spain and start residing here. Or get employed because they find a job opportunity, a vacancy that is considered qualified, and there are certain degrees of income that has to be proven. But if that qualifies, we have this high qualified professional permit. High skill visa is known as that also. That is a very fast track and successful way to receive residency here. I will say this one is going to be maybe 60-70% of the applications. And then we have, of course, other special situations like relatives, like people who has Spanish ancestry that maybe can do something else, persons who maybe want to work as a self-employed person, non-lucrative, that are going to be applied from the consulate. We have many, many paths. I will say these are going to be the most popular, and also the ones that you can apply from Spain tends to have more track and more interest than the other ones.
All right. Wow. So there are different options, definitely. Not just the usual student, of course, student visa and work visa. These are popular, of course. And then you've mentioned also already non-lucrative, right? Cristian, can you explain what is a non-lucrative visa? I'm sure a lot of people are not familiar with this. Compare it with the usual work visa or family visa, and what are the requirements for this and the process for obtaining this kind of resident or non-lucrative visa and residency permit? Hope you're on mute, Cristian.
The non-lucrative visa, it's a very popular one. It comes from the law of 2001. Now with the update on the law, there is some small changes, but basically it's for those who come to Spain to reside with no need to work. They need to prove this at the Spanish consulate. So the process starts at the consulate, where they need to provide evidences that they have enough savings to live in Spain without work. This based on the bank accounts, assets, regular incomes, credit cards, all these. They have to prove a certain amount depending on how many family members they want to come to Spain. And basically it's the idea that they come to Spain just to reside. Normally there is two profiles. There would be older people that they just come here to retire. And there would be middle-aged people that they have family and they want to enjoy a sabbatical year in the country, or 2 or 3, just to enjoy to learn the Spanish, to have the kids going to Spanish school, to have an experience. And basically, this would be the non-lucrative visa. The first period, it would be for 1 year, and the renewals are for 2 years, and then 5. And this would be, generally speaking, what the non-lucrative visa is about.
All right. Now, so non-lucrative, basically, you mentioned it's more of people who who are coming here not to work, right? But usually to retire, for example.
Yeah.
Darío, would like to add to that?
Yes, if I can say as a follow-up, yes, absolutely. In fact, and this is something, in the US, there are many different consulates. I think you have 8, if I'm not mistaken, right now. So each of them may have a different criteria. But as a general rule, I will say that it's important that, and this is a common one that they ask in most consulates, if you are in working age, what they want to see is that basically you stopped working. Because since this permit is going to be just a residency permit, at least for the initial year, you're not allowed to work from here. So if your income is going to be provided by your job or something like that, they want to see that that's not the case, okay? So basically you either show, and this is going to be accepted by most consulates, that you have a passive source of income, or that you have the savings or the assets, as Cristian mentioned, in order to be able to suffice that criteria, okay? Also very important, and following up on this idea of different consulates, some of them will ask you for different things. For example, we saw that Some of them will require you to show a lease in Spain for a certain amount of time in order to show where you're going to be living. Others, not. Others consulates, maybe they ask you to do a notarial declaration if you're in working age, asking you to say that you're not going to be working in Spain. Okay, so the basic idea, and this has to be taken into account in very detail, but is that each consulate has their own specific, I would say, criteria, even if the law is the same for everybody. And I will say that seeking advice or taking very good care of complying with the criteria of the specific consulate is going to be key in order to achieve this residency permit. Okay. Also, after the first, and this is, I think, is very important to acknowledge, is that after this initial 1 year of residency, you can not only renew, but you could modify that permit. So we have lots of clients that, for example, they start a journey here in Spain with this initial sabbatical, with this initial year in Spain, but then afterwards, maybe they want to open a business. They start working as self-employed people in Spain, as 1099. Or maybe they actually find a job position and they want to modify that permit and start working for a company in Spain, okay? So all these are options that open after you have the non-lucrative residency, and can sometimes be considered like that as a sabbatical, or for other clients, it can be considered a starting point to get introduced into Spain in an accessible manner, and then from there, build businesses, build another routes, and end up doing other activities that require working, of course.
All right. Yeah, very useful. Definitely. And um, can you give us an idea? Like you mentioned, like savings. Is there a specific number there, like a minimum requirement?
It would be normally in gross, it would be 30,000 for the principal and 10,000 for each additional family member. For the initial permit, for the renewals, they have to double the amounts. And this would be in general how they have to prove. They have several ways to do it: savings, assets, investments, and even credit cards.
All right. So 30,000 usually for the principal, and then for the family members would be 10,000. You said, right? Each
Exactly.
around that number for their savings account. Now, there, of course, there are popular. We mentioned the popular, other popular visas, right? And immigration pathways, for example, student visa, and even work visa or family relationship type of visa. I don't know the exact term for that, familial, for example. But let's say for student, what are the common reasons applications get rejected for students?
Okay. Do I start with
Yes,
that one?
sorry,
Okay.
Darío, go ahead.
Excellent, Carlos. No, of course, a pleasure. So students, I will say that what's key is to know in what type of study you're enrolling. And this, and for everybody that doesn't know this already, yesterday, May 20th, we had a change in the regulation, okay, that affects a lot parts of the immigration regime, but particularly for students, it has a very deep impact, because there's going to be a large difference between people who is studying superior degrees and people who is not, okay? So I will say that everybody who is doing from professional formation, superior degree, graduates, masters, postdoctors, of course, all these kind of studies, they are going to be the ones that have the easier access, okay? And very important in answering your question, being sure that their official degrees provided by a registered institution in the country is going to be key to have a successful application. Sometimes there are other educational institutions that maybe they're recognizable or they have prestige, but they don't comply necessarily with the formal criteria that the Spanish administration needs to check, and it could cause some issues, okay? Also, there are going to be differences between who can later modify this permit or not. So a student permit, and to clarify this, has a length equal to the one that the study has. So if somebody comes to study a graduate here in the country, they're going to have 4 years, right? And then after they finish, you have the ability to change that study permit and achieve a residency permit, a full residency permit, okay? And one that can allow to be employed by companies, or one to work on themselves, okay? And this ability is not for all types of studies. It's for superior degrees, professional formation, and other very specific studies. So I mentioned this because sometimes we had a lot of students that maybe they started their journey by studying a language course, something like that. Criteria is going to change now. So paying specific attention to the study one is going to study, the institution you're going to do it, is going to be super relevant in order to avoid mistakes and be sure of what you're getting exactly and what you're going to be able to do afterwards, okay?
All right. So basically, there are more restrictions now, especially when it comes to the type of programs, educational
Also
programs.
clarifications, I would say, because we had some open criteria of what superior meant and what not, and what could exactly, who could work. And there were some kind of things that now are more clear. And I think it's a good effort by the government to clarify who can do what exactly.
Mhm.
On the other hand, people that were not maybe interested in superior degrees or professional formation, they can still do it for sure, but they need to be very certain that that fits their migration plan into Spain, because some of these other studies are not going to have access to the full array of opportunities here in Spain.
All right. Thank you. Christian, how about other visas, types of visa? In your experience, what are some of the common reasons why applications are rejected?
Well, normally the rejections, well, in our office at Balcells Group, the lawyers that we have, normally they do a due diligence before they take a case. So we don't have many rejections, fortunately. But most common cases would be if the applicant has criminal records on the country of origin. This would be something difficult to sort out, or if they don't have the financial requirements, because for the permits, for most of the permits, they require either to have financial savings to live in Spain, or in case of professionals who move here, to have certain salaries who could be acceptable as high salaries enough to get the highly skilled professional, or even the remote workers. They have some requirements to have minimum incomes. So this would be mainly criminal records, and the savings or the amounts requested for the permits would be the two main reasons of rejection.
All right. Yes, definitely. I always hear that, and of course, based on just looking at the forum online forum and online comments in your websites, for example, in the articles, lots of the comments being shared there are because of the savings, right? The bank accounts. They cannot prove that they can afford living they can sustain their lives or their families' lives in Spain. Now, let's talk about the golden visa. Of course, for some people who are not familiar, Spain used to have a golden visa that allows property owners or property buyers to obtain residency in Spain. Christian, tell us about the removal of this visa called the golden visa in Spain, and what happens now to people who currently have it.
Well, here there would be two interesting things. Well, the first one is that there was this program for investors who invest in the country, that they could get straight away a residence permit to live and to work for a long term. It was 3 years, renewal for 5. This was cancelled. In major of the European countries, they don't have anymore this golden visa. So it's something that it's not only of Spain, it's a thing of all Europe. And saying that, the reason for the cancellation was to reduce the speculation in the real estate, to make it more easy or more accessible for local people, and then also to go to fight against the money laundering from people who were investing in the country just to take out the money from other countries. So we will see what will be the impact on the real estate sector. because in my opinion, those who like Spain, pues we will continue investing on the country, buying properties to live, to enjoy the country. But we will see what will be the impact on this, because as well, the image that we are giving to the world is that we don't want foreigners anymore in Spain, in some part. So we could discuss for hours this, because you can see positive things, negative things, or we can even think that nothing will change on regards to investors. And on regards to the people who already have the golden visa, they would be able to renew the permit, so it won't affect them at all. The problem would be for those who buy properties now that they could not get access to this program anymore.
All right. That was a really good point, right? You said those who really want to invest in Spain can do so. I mean, no one stopping potential investors, right, in Spain. But at least for those who want to live here, who want to get the residencies, there are other pathways. Darío, would you like to add to that?
Yes, of course. I would say, and just for every is clear with that, I mean, we had a notice that this was going to happen eventually, and we kind of smelled that this was going to be the case. So people had time to plan ahead, and the ones that were actually interested in getting the residency plus the investor residency, I mean, we did lots of applications prior to the withdrawal of this program, okay? Everybody, just to be certain about it, is going to be able to renew those permits, and even include family members. They keep all the rights, okay? So it's not like the government changed the idea and people were left with nothing. That has to be said, because it doesn't work like that, okay? And second, of course, we can debate about the reasons, everything. This, I think, it's out of the scope, but as Cristian said, there are many other ways to actually invest, to actually get a residency, and it's a phenomenon that is happening whole in Europe, and I think it's going to be reduced over time. There are still some countries that offer residency by investment, but residency by investment, for example, doesn't take account into your taxes. It doesn't take account into, okay, what if I want to get the special tax regime applied and actually be living in Spain? For some investors that actually wanted to live in Spain, investor residency wasn't even the main selling point here. They had other opportunities to build businesses here, to get special tax regime because of that, or because they're getting employed here in the country, achieve residency in other paths that are very good also. I will say that the ones that actually wanted to live in the country, they will always have another opportunity to do so. And the ones that actually wanted to invest or do businesses here, they're fine too, okay? The only case that is a little bit sad that they took out this program is people that just wanted to have an asset here and be able to enter visa-free eventually. There is no like an easy solution for that, because the rest of the programs we have, they have some criteria about residing in the country and maintaining a certain period of residency, even non-lucrative. With the recent reform, now they ask you to stay 183 days here in Spain. So people who actually wants to live in Spain and have a real idea of living here, they have all opportunities open. I would say that people who didn't want to live here full time, they will have one less option, but there are still things they could do, okay?
All right. Thank you. And you mentioned investing, for example, business. What about for entrepreneurs and, let's say, remote workers? What are the available pathways for them, or visas, those who would like to live and work here in Spain and also work remotely from Spain?
Of course. Me or Cristian? Me, okay. So,
yes, go ahead,
of
Darío.
course, thank you. So basically, if it's a remote worker, typically they're going to be looking into the digital nomad. That is basically a residency permit that allows to reside in the country and work remotely for companies that are placed abroad of the country. Could be in the US, or it could be in any other country in the end, okay? I will say that the biggest differentiation here is we have an agreement with some countries that is about social security. And in some countries, this agreement is easy to apply, and in others not, okay? As an advice, everybody who is looking for digital nomad from the US, most scenarios are going to do it as a 1099, as a self-employed person, okay? because the inability to achieve easily or securely this certificate of coverage of Social Security as a W-2, as an employee. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It's that easier to do, harder to do. So most scenarios, self-employed people, sole traders, 1099s, had very easy access for the digital nomad, and they will do just that, okay? Then we have other people that basically they just want to set up a business here in Spain, and then that business is the one that provides services abroad. And for that, there are different type of applications. There is the one that is called exactly entrepreneur, and that one is still doable, but I have to say criteria has been a little bit strict, so it has to comply with certain objectives in order to qualify for the entrepreneur permit. That could be potentially a good solution. Or we have the standard from the old law to self-employment work and residency permit that, according to the new reformation in the law, the new reform, should be even more accessible now. So it's also a good chance to achieve residence in Spain and work locally from here, having clients abroad. And I cannot end this without mentioning there are corporate structures that can be set in Spain and be transferred here to be an employed person of a Spanish company. For example, let's think about corporate setups that maybe they have a bigger size outside of the country, and they want to open a branch here in Spain and then transfer employees. All this is also very helpful. Accessibility for residency, even the special tax regime. So I will say that everybody who has business interests, investment in the country, or they're remote workers, they have almost always a good path to achieve residency here, and it's very doable.
Right, thank you. Christian, can you give us an idea of the requirements, for example, for digital nomad and an entrepreneur? Or what is the difference between the requirements?
Yes, well, it's a different type of permit. The digital nomad is for those international persons that want to work remotely from Spain, so international remote workers. There is two categories. They can come to Spain as an employee, so they work for a company that allows them to work remotely from Spain, or they can come as a business owners to develop their activity remotely from Spain. So the digital nomad would be a person that mostly work remotely from Spain or can work remotely from Spain, and the entrepreneur would be those who want to develop a project in the country that it has points of interest for Spain, innovation, creation of employment, or it attracts people to some regions of the country. So it would be two different things. One would be to develop my remote activity from Spain. The other one would be to do an activity inside of Spain. And on regards to the requirements, most important would be either as an employee or as a contractor to have certain amount of incomes regular. So Spain wants remote workers who has some level of incomes, because this would be also interesting on the fact that they will pay Social Security mostly and taxes. So it's a win-win. I give you the permit, but you will be taxable in Spain. We could talk a lot about this because there is several regimes depending on how they enter, how they come to Spain. And on regards to the entrepreneurs, the most important would be the business plan, the idea, the project, that it matches one of the interests of Spain as a country. Okay. This would be, in general, the main difference between both and the key points of both.
So for digital nomad, you said contract or projects. Is there like an amount of salary or earning or a contract that a digital nomad must have?
In general, it would be around 32,000 for the principal, 12,000 for the spouse and or husband, and 4,000 for each family member. I could tell you the exact number, but it would be faster to say but it would be.
So that number, 30,000, is that their savings or the contract?
The regular incomes.
Okay, the income annually.
Okay,
annual. And then for the entrepreneur visa, is there also a number there? Let's say a minimum amount for their investment in Spain?
On entrepreneurs, they look more into the project than into the investment on the amount, but it has to be a solid project. And I always say that it has to be connected what you want to do, what your savings. So if you want to open a hotel, pues you need to have some savings. If you want to develop an app, pues you need to, it needs to have sense what you want to do and what you have and your capacity.
Yeah.
But some people, they say, no, I want to open a rural hotel, for example, but and who is going to invest on this? Do you have a project? Do you have an architect? So it needs to be everything. It needs to match everything on the project. It does not. It's not about how much I'm going to invest. It's about, is it going to be interesting for Spain? Are you capable? You have the what you require to develop this idea?
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Dario, you also mentioned earlier self-employed, right? So those who are self-employed abroad. So, and that can be considered a digital nomad. This, I mean, these are self-employed who can work remotely. Is that what you were saying?
Correct. The typical term we use with clients from the US is the differentiation between a 1099 and a W-2. Okay, if you're a 1099, a self-employed person, basically you are going to have a contractual relationship with clients. This contractual agreement is the one that is going to sustain your income in Spain, and is what was Cristian mentioning before, this sustainable influx of income that you need to prove. I mentioned this because sometimes we have clients that maybe they have very good revenue, but that revenue is not sustained in a contract that proves that it's going to be over time. Okay, and in this regard, the Spanish administration is quite formal, and they actually want to see it in the contract. So there are different options if that's the situation. I mean, most people can arrange the contracts to be managed in a manner that benefits their application. But if it's not the case, then we can evaluate other options that could be applicable, okay, and try to fix it in that manner. In the end, what it comes to, and the key criteria here, and the most important document is going to be that contractual agreement, if it's a 1099, or the employment contract if somebody is a W-2. As I said, the most common option for US citizens is going to be 1099 because of accessibility, but also doable with W-2. Okay.
All right. Yeah, very useful indeed. And yes, of course, to everyone who is watching this, don't hesitate. Just write down your comments if you have any questions, and also some tips. Share your experiences as well. If you think your experiences or your experience is useful to others, please write them down in the comments, as well as your questions, of course. Cristian, now what about for those with family ties in Spain, like having grandparents? What immigration options are available for them, and how straightforward is the process? Is it more complicated, or is it usually more straightforward?
Well, nowadays, since the update on the law, the new law on regards to immigration, there's been some changes on the family members of Spanish citizens. They created the title of familiares de españoles, so family members of a Spanish person as a whole permit. We will see how fast they are going to answer this type of applications, but basically, if you are a family member of, if your husband or your wife is Spanish, or your kid is Spanish, or or your father is Spanish, pues there would be ways to get the residence permit straight away. You just need to prove the link or the relation with this person, and basically would be this. We are on the first days of this new law, so I cannot tell you much more because we don't even apply for no permit as this. But in generally speaking, would be if you're a family member of a Spanish citizen, pues, of course you will have some facilities to get the permit. It's gonna be a permit for 5 years, and you just need to prove the link with this person. And there is several categories, as I said: kids, couple, or people or parents.
Yeah, just to add on top of that and to clarify, this already existed before, but it was regulated by European regulations straight away. It was called EU family member. Now Spain decided to incorporate a new regulation that is exclusively for Spanish citizens. The rest of European citizens still comply with the old regulation, okay? And I will say that as big, to not get into detail, of course, but the good news are that now people can apply for the permit depending on when they are placed. For example, if we have the two members of the family here, they can apply from here. If we have one in each country, they can apply from the consulate. So it has more flexibility. Before the EU citizen residency, you could only apply from Spain. There were visas to do so, but depending on the consulate, they were a little bit tricky to do. Now with this new program, it has more accessibility, and you can get the residency for 5 years right away, independently of where the people is living to. Also, in regards to the relatives, we have relatives that have been advantages. For example, before you can always bring family members, but some are going to be very easy. Others, they have extra requirements, okay? For example, bringing children that is younger than 25 is very easy. You do not need to prove that they are in charge of you automatically. If they are your son or daughter and they are 20 years old or younger, you can bring them. If they're older than that, 26 or older, then you need to prove that you are in charge of them, okay? And this barrier, these 25 years, got increased with this regulation. Before was less, okay? So that's good news. Also, for example, if you are married or if you are a couple with a Spanish citizen, there is a new flexibility that now is specially regulated that, for example, if you are not in a registered couple, but you have children together, or you can prove that you have been living together for 2 years, that is going to also account as proof of your bond together. So these that are very common cases, children and also partners, I think they have more accessibility now, and they have more options to channel the application. So overall, I think they are good news. It's not something new, but it's something that got improved for Spanish citizens, and it's going to be hopefully working better now.
All right. Wonderful. Now, when it comes to permanent residency and citizenship, what are the requirements? Let's say for permanent residency, is there a possibility, Christian, to obtain that in Spain? And if so, what are the usual requirements?
Yes, basically to get a long-term or PR permanent residency, there is several ways to call it. You need to reside for 5 years in the country. You cannot be more than 10 months out of the country during these 5 years. If you can prove that you have been more for professional reasons, it could be only up to 12 months. So to get access to the permanent residency, it's very important to live in Spain mostly, to have properly registered in the city town, to keep an eye on the padrón, on the empadronamiento, to be able, when you get these 5 years in Spain, to apply for the long-term or the permanent residency.
All right. So yeah, of course, the empadron would be the residential permit, the residency permit here in your city, right? And is being a student considered a resident? And what is considered a resident, for example, here in Spain? Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, well, there would be two categories. There would be the regular residence permits, such as family members of EU citizens or entrepreneurs or highly skilled, well, all type of permits. And then the students, before the new law, and this Darío can correct me because I'm 95% sure, but I'm not 100% sure. The students now, if they come to Spain, they will get a visa, and here in Spain, they will get a residence permit. So they will be assimilated to residents, and this will count towards to the citizenship. So now there is no distinction between students and the other permits since this new law came into effect.
That is news, huh? That is big news. Darío, would you like to add to that?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, the difference with the study regulation, and this, of course, we are, as Cristian mentioned, in the first day of application, so there are things that still need clarification from the government. But the change was, in my research, that basically you get the permit for the whole duration of the study, even if you need to renew the card. But still considered a stay permit. The technical difference is between a stay and a residency. And stay can be short-term, that is touristic, basically, or long-term, that's students, basically, okay? And then it comes residency, that is the rest. In my research, I didn't come yet to find this change in consideration to residency. Of course, after hearing this, I will read everything, but I didn't find that. Anyway, it's supposed to be a relationship with the country that is not so powerful as talent, okay? That's the idea behind it. And typically, you need to have the residency in order to start to account for that. And also, very importantly, for nationality too, okay? Because it's formal residency with a residency card plus staying in the country. That is what is going to be taken into account in order to build in the future, not only the long-term residency, the permanent residency, also to be able to get the Spanish nationality, okay?
Okay, yes. Well, if you do find out, please do let us know so we can share in our content
Yes,
later
now
on.
my colleague said to me that I was wrong because
Okay.
it will be as Darío said. So there will be counting for it won't count for the citizenship. The only thing that they will give longer periods for the permit, and there would be two categories: the ones who applies from the consulate, they'll get a visa, and well, we are still on the beginning, on the second day of the law, or the first day today.
Yeah.
So we will see how it's gonna be developed. This.
Yeah. So for now, it's safe to say that it's still
Yes.
considered a stay, but not residency. So for those who are not familiar with immigration statuses, of course, studying mostly in most countries does not mean you're a resident because it doesn't count to citizenship. I would say count citizenship eligibility, right? Now, let's move into citizenship. What requirements, or let's say the main requirements, especially with the stay or the residency here, for someone who would like to attain Spanish citizenship? Dario?
Of course. So the most important thing is there are different types of residency. For example, we have a program that's still going online that is for descendancy of Spanish citizens that had to flee because of the civil war that we had here time ago. In the end, it was applied in a more general manner. For example, people who has even grandparents, and in some cases could be even higher, from that were originally from Spain, they can ask for this Spanish nationality, okay? But this is a very specific type, okay? Then there are others. The one we were referring before is for residency, okay? And the term you need to reside in Spain in order to achieve it varies, changes, depending on your situation. For example, if you are married with a Spanish citizen, they're going to ask you for only 1 year of residency before applying for nationality. If your nationality, the main one, is from certain countries, it's going to be reduced for 2. For example, all Iberoamerica, Andorra, Philippines, Guinea Equatorial, Portugal, or people from Sephardi ascendancy, they all have this reduced period of 2 years of residency in order to achieve Spanish nationality, okay? Also very important, I think this qualifies for, in the US, is important to mention, people from Puerto Rico, even if they had a US passport, if they get a certain certificate showing that they are of Puerto Rican ancestor, they can get this reduced timeline too. So very useful for them, okay? And then as a general overview, and to not get into too much detail, the most important thing is to have been living in Spain, of course, and to provide knowledge about 2 things. One is language, the other one is general knowledge of Spain and how it works. If you are from a country that already has as a main language Spanish, then that's you don't need to do anything. You just show the passport and that's it. If it's not, for example, if you have a US passport, you will need to provide a DELE A2 is the level, A2, and you will also need to do a certain test for this general overview knowledge of Spain, okay? Tends to be quite easy, honestly, and this one is not really a problem. It's just a matter of organization and preparation, and sometimes, you know, you need to get an appointment to do it, so it's just organization, okay? And then the typical documents they're going to ask you, to not get into too much detail, the two most important ones are going to be your birth certificate and your criminal background checks, the FEA background check, okay? So this is mostly it. With that, you start a process. It has a legal term of 1 year in order to get sorted out. Tends to work, and I have to say happily that most applications are sorted out before a year, some of them not, of course, and you can take measures if that's the case. And after that, you achieve your Spanish passport, and basically you become a Spanish citizen with full rights to do whatever you want, voting even, you have all freedoms. And also it's a gateway to reside in other European countries, because as you know, as a European national, you have freedom to maybe travel to Germany, to Italy, settle there, or achieve residency there. So it's a good, I would say, project, especially for these nationalities that has the privilege time of 2 years. In maybe 3 years, they can achieve residency, nationality, and then if they want to explore other places in Europe, they can do. I think it's a quite good reason to reside in Spain.
All right. So you mentioned, of course, countries like Equatorial Guinea, the Philippines, and Latin American countries as well, including those coming from Puerto Rico, who are
Correct.
U.S. citizens. Christian, what about countries who are coming from outside these countries? So, like, let's say people from Indonesia or people from African countries that's outside Equatorial Guinea. What's the requirement for them to become citizenship or
Yeah,
a
well,
citizen?
generally speaking, they have to reside for 10 years in the country. They
Okay.
cannot be out of Spain more than 6 months per year, so they have to be residents of Spain. And then after these 10 years, they could apply for the Spanish citizenship. It's very important that they will need to do a language exam, the DLA2. It's a basic level of Spanish. And they have to do as well the cultural exam, the CCSE, which is also a basic level of Spanish culture. And yeah, this would be the road for those who are not from Latin American countries, Guinea Equatorial, all the countries that we mentioned, or they
Mhm.
don't have roots with Spain, such as they were not born in Spain, they don't have family members in Spain.
Yeah, and certain like bank account or what do you call this? Proof of work or income. Is this a requirement for citizenship?
Basically, what they require is to reside in the country. They need to have this to pass these two exams. It would be the most
Okay.
important. They could not have criminal records in the country where they reside previously and where they were born. And also they need to accredit the birth certificate. And this would be mainly the application.
Okay.
They don't need to have a work contract to
Okay.
have any other than this to get access to the citizenship. In this regard, what in my opinion is very important is to reside in the country most of the time and to keep an eye always to the padrón, because this would be one of the elements to prove that you reside in Spain.
All right. Yeah. So people don't forget that word, empadronamiento, padrón. That's very important when once you start living here, even if you're a student, right? Even for students, it's important that you start, that you register that your resident certificate here in your local city in Spain.
Exactly.
Also, there's one question I always find online because different types of studies, right? You have studies less than 6 months. Um, is that does that allow you to stay in Spain? Because you mentioned earlier in the beginning that for some visas you can renew from Spain. Dario, what about the
Correct.
short-term study or study programs?
It's not so much a matter of the length of the study, is what type of study you're doing. Okay. For
Okay.
example, if you are doing a language course because you want to learn Spanish, you are allowed to do one renew of that permit. This is the new regulation being applied. Okay. Before it was unlimited and you could be 10 years studying Spanish. You would be Spanish expert by the end of that, but you would be able technically to do it. Okay. Now, if you come to do studies that are not considered superior, you can do one renew of that permit. Other studies, for example, superior degrees, master's, graduate, superior formation, or high level, etc., you're allowed to do 2 renews of that permit. Important to mention, as I said before, now the study permit is going to be for the complete length of the initial study. Before, it was 1 year almost always, and you had to renew every year. Now it's supposed to be for the full length of the study. So let's say you want to do a graduate study or a master's of 2 years or 1 year and a half, you're going to have all that time, okay? If it was for 6 months initially, here it's not a problem. You are going to still be able, well, first, a very big difference. If it's just 6 months or less, you're not going to get a residency card in Spain, okay? The TIE that we also always mention, okay? And even if that's not an issue from a legal perspective, it can be a little bit uncomfortable. So we typically recommend, if you are planning to come to Spain, either you do a study of less than 3 months if you have the access of visa to Spain without requesting anything, so you don't need to process anything. Or since you're going to have to do the work of processing something, do it of longer than 6 months. So at least you get your residency card, you can identify yourself with authorities easily and have an easy time here, okay? And then, depending on the type of study you did, you are going to have either full opportunities like modification, like being able to get a work residency permit, everything, or not. Or maybe you are only here to study and then you renew once more and then you need to find something else, okay? Also, don't forget never that some opportunities can be achieved from Spain, always that you have a legal residence in the country. For example, let's say that you're a student here, and during your first year of studies, you land a very good job opportunity as a high qualified professional. Then that company could request you as an employee and apply for this permit without any other needs of having to do a modification or anything like that. So sometimes we have students that maybe they have one of these permits that they cannot renew, or they have other type of limitations, but in the end, we try to find always a solution for them so they can, if they want to actually be here and work for companies, etc., achieve their residency and work permit here.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Sounds really good. And well, finally, to end our exciting conversations in there today, Cristian, what advice would you like to give people who are preparing their application requirements?
Well, I will give 3 advices. The first one is, as it's going to be a very important move to get advice from a professional on the sector, because at the end, if you want to do alone all this journey, it could be difficult, and you could do mistakes that could affect all the time invested on it. So to get a professional to help you with the application. The second advice would be that to be patient in immigration. Patience is very important, because at the end, the bureaucracy, not only in Spain, in most of the countries, because it can be hard. So patience is powerful. And then the third one would be that it's possible that people make it. And so to move to Spain, it's totally possible with a good advice, with patience, and with attitude.
All right. Thank you. Darío?
I would say that probably the key differentiation between people that actually make it and people that doesn't is having a good strategy. Of course, you can get to achieve your strategy on your own or with good advice, for sure. But having a plan and be aware of all the legal requirements, if it makes sense between this option or other potential options, this is going to be fundamental. And probably is the factor that decides the most between the people that actually has a successful application, and more importantly, that they apply for something that actually fulfills their needs, because there is nothing worse than getting approved for something that is not actually what you want, okay? So I will say successfully having a strategy, an immigration strategy, is the cornerstone of everything. And then on top of that, proper execution, respecting deadlines, Every document has to be in a specific manner with translations, with legalization. These small details, sometimes, even if you have the perfect strategy and you have everything properly prepared, for something very silly, you can have either a very long delay or mistakes in your application that are going to be a denial in the end, okay? So my advice is have a proper strategy and execute very cleanly. If you do that, as Cristian mentioned, you will need to be patient in some of these paths, but the result is going to be the one that you're seeking for. If you don't have a proper planning, if you don't execute very cleanly what the administration wants, then you're going to start facing trouble. And that sadly can derivate in a refusal of our application, okay? And of course, enjoy Spain. This is the most important advice after you get your residency, and the most important one.
Yes, that's right. Well, thank you very much for your advice that you've given to us today. Very useful, definitely, for those who have the usual doubts and questions when it comes to immigrating to Spain. Cristian Balcells, Director and CEO at Balcells Group, and Darío Cerisole, and the Client Acquisition Director and Partner at Illay Legal. Thank you guys for joining us, and have an awesome afternoon.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice
Muchas
Bye-bye.
day.
gracias.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you again, everyone. Hope you enjoyed our session for today. If you have any questions, please post them right in the comments down below. And yes, we will try our best to answer your doubts and questions. Of course, um, when it comes to this topic, right, we have so many doubts, so many questions when it comes to immigrating to countries like Spain. But yeah, this is the right space to answer these questions, and hopefully our experts and our partners can get back to you. Have an awesome afternoon. Have an awesome week, everyone, and wherever you are, have all the best to your endeavors, to your career, your business, and life. All right.